AITAH for refusing to let my sister's family live in my house after they sold theirs for a dream vacation. So I, 32 mem, own a modest 3-bedroom house that I've been paying off for the last 10 years. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine, and I'm proud of it. My sister, 29F, and her husband, 31M, are the typical free-spirited types. They've always talked about quitting the rat race, living life to the fullest, all that. Well, a few months ago, they finally did it. They sold their house during a booming market, thinking the profit would fund a year-long break to travel. They believed they could stretch the money by traveling cheaply, staying in hostels or Airbnbs, and getting by with occasional odd jobs. At first, they stayed in nicer places and ate out a lot, thinking they had plenty of cushion, but within 2 months, they were out of money. They underestimated how quickly expenses would pile up, especially with 2 young kids, 7F and 5M, to feed and care for. Now that their funds are drained, they've decided to stop full-time travel, but don't want to settle down yet. Instead, they ask to live with me, rent-free for the next 10 months while they figure things out. They say they'll still try to take some occasional trips if they find super cheap deals, but for the most part, they want to stay at my house. I told them no. My house isn't big enough. I don't want the disruption, and I certainly don't think it's fair for them to live off me because their plan failed. I offered to help them find an affordable rental or even cover part of their expenses for a couple of months so they could get back on their feet, but that wasn't enough. My sister blew up at me, calling me selfish and accusing me of being jealous of their adventurous lifestyle. To make it worse, my parents are siding with her, saying that family should help family and that I'm being too rigid. The thing is, my parents live in a small apartment and can't take in my sister's family, which is probably why they're pushing it on me. They say I don't understand the value of experiences and that I should be more supportive. Some of our mutual friends are also saying I should be more understanding, but I think it's completely unreasonable to expect me to house their whole family for nearly a year just because they didn't plan properly. Am I the asshole? AITAH for suggesting that my hookup went to see a doctor about her vagina. I really don't think I've done anything wrong here, but I'll give a little backstory. I've been getting together with this girl on and off for about 10 years. While we were starting our latest tryst the other night, we were doing some foreplay, and I was feeling around down there and noticed some concerning lumps. The lumps were pretty far inside her, and I was concerned that she wouldn't have naturally gone in that far herself, with her own fingers. My mind made a mental note to mention it to her when we finished. So, while we were talking after, I mentioned to her what I had felt and said to her that she should get checked out. This is when she got really defensive with me and started accusing me of things. She said that just 'cause we get together occasionally, it doesn't give me the right to talk about that stuff. I think she was also assuming I was calling her unclean or something, which is absolutely not the case. In fact, it's the complete opposite. I was just worried for her health, especially after having recently lost my mother to cancer in very similar circumstances. So, I said to her that it's better to be safe than sorry. But this didn't go down as well as I thought it would, and she left. She usually stays for the night and we have breakfast together. I admit, it was a very blunt thing to say right after having sex, but I just didn't know when else to bring it up. AITAH? Edit for more details, as this is kind of blown up. Yes, she knew I was talking about cancer. Yes, she knows about my mother. She was at her funeral. Yes, we used protection. We always do. I have messaged her and explained my feelings on the matter. Mostly, I just said that there was no judgment on my part, that it was only after my mother's experience that I had to make sure she was aware of the lumps. She hasn't told me if she's been to the doctor or had previously known about the lumps, because why the hell would she? Her medical treatments are none of my damn business. She's still upset with me. I messaged her yesterday asking if we could talk. She pretty much blew me off. Hopefully she has a think about it and realizes it came from a place of concern. I could have waited until breakfast or brunch, yes. I was more interested in the women's perspective with regards to replies in this post, as I didn't know if I had made some sort of male faux pas. The lumps were small, about half the size of a pea, and hard. They were not on the cervix. I know her body very well, and this was not something that was there before. Hence my concern. Thanks for all the comments. AITAH for telling my wife to kick out her friend who's been living with us for the past month after her husband kicked her out. My M45 wife's friend Zell, F32, has been living with us for the past month after her marriage imploded about a month ago. Zell came to our country about 3 years ago on a work visa. She was working for a company and met my wife Molly, F43, at a work event. Molly and Zell became quick friends as Molly used to do social work, and she found Zell's story to be very moving and interesting. Zell started dating this guy I'll call M35, who had recently launched a company in her field. She left her original job and started working for Ed, and not long after that, they got married. Zell's job became pretty cushy. So instead of working, she went back to college to pursue a career in social work. And since Molly had experience in this, she became a sort of mentor for Zell. With Ed funding Zell's education and living expenses, it seemed like everything was set for her. Fast forward to mid-August, and Ed found out Zell had been cheating on him for several weeks with one of her classmates. Ed immediately cut funding for Zell's education and kicked her out of his house. The prenup Ed had her sign left her with absolutely nothing, effectively making her penniless and homeless. On top of that, Ed has spread the story across their community, and as such, Zell's reputation is in tatters, and her family back in their home country wants nothing to do with her, supposedly. The divorce hasn't been finalized at the time of this writing. With the resources he has, I imagine Ed could speed up the process, but for whatever reason, it's dragging on. With seemingly no one to turn to, Zell came to us, and Molly welcomed her one day while I was at work. Since then, she has been living in our basement. Molly spends a lot of time now just talking to Zell and trying to help her get her life back on track. So much so that it is starting to affect our personal lives. And I feel like childcare has been made exclusively my responsibility for most of the week. Not only that, but since our gym equipment is in the basement, I had to stop working out, which has adversely affected my own mental health. I've been very annoyed about the entire situation, but have largely borne it in silence until last night. Right before bed, Molly started going on about how the divorce could take months and that we need to find Zell a lawyer. At this stage, I told her that Zell had overstayed her welcome and needed to leave. It got pretty heated, and my wife said I was being shockingly unempathetic. I told her she was ignoring her responsibilities to our children, which deeply offended her. In the end, I told her that, as a compromise, we could buy Zell a plane ticket back to her home country so she could be with her family. Molly was so upset at this for whatever reason and just responded with, "Good night." We haven't spoken since then, partially because I decided to go work in my office today since I needed a break from Molly's nonsense. I honestly don't know what to do at this stage. I just want that woman out of my home. Aya? Update. 15 hours later, and I still haven't really spoken to my wife. Partially because I was at work all day, but also because I was hoping she'd reach out first. When I got home, Zell was still hanging around like nothing happened, though I guess expecting her to magically leave would be asking for too much. Before the day is done, I will talk to my wife about our situation again because it needs to end. Also, for those wondering, the classmate won't have her either. According to my wife, he told Zell that his personal life would be destroyed if he tried pursuing anything with her, so he ended things abruptly. To my understanding, he has a wife who doesn't even know he cheated.